All right, there we go. All right. Hey, how's it going, Ashish?
Good. How are you, man? When was the last time we saw each other?
It it had to be in re-invent last year,
Wow.
last November, December.
Wow. It's been like almost 6 months because like RSA just went by as well. And I
Yeah.
see you changed your hair color as well. I'm curious. What's the color called?
It's called honey blonde, but it's basically nothing different from me just bleaching my hair, literally.
I can definitely see the honey, but I'm not sure about the blonde yet. But
I
I'll let the people judge on the other side if it's actually the honey blonde in there or just honey color.
I mean, like I wanted to toe the line. I didn't want to fully commit to being blonde, and I wanted something somewhere in the middle. And honey blonde was just doing it for me, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead with this color.
That's pretty cool. Actually, funny story on the whole coloring of the hair thing as well. I colored my beard for not last Christmas, the Christmas before that, but it was one of
Yeah,
those sprinkle things. You can just basically put some kind of a beard oil and sprinkle on it. But I only had it for
yeah.
5 minutes because every time I would just turn my head or just walk, I'm just basically leaving sparkles along the way.
No,
So
nah, that's
I could not eat. I could not do anything apart from I took a few pictures. I spent a lot of time taking pictures, and that was it. I just washed it off after that. So
yeah,
kudos to people who
yeah.
do that for
No, I feel
movies and
that,
stuff as well, man. So at least this is
man.
not that kind of color. It's not going to come off just as you walk around, or maybe on your pillow.
Yeah. No, 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 no. It doesn't. It doesn't. It's just like it doesn't come off or anything. Like, except I take it off. I'll probably take it off like later this week.
All right,
I
okay.
think it was an experiment. I wanted to try it, see how it looks. And yeah, I'm glad I did it, and enjoyed it for while it lasted.
Now looks good, man. Looks good. What else has been going on here,
Yeah.
man? Like I think what are we talking about today?
I mean, we're talking about cloud security podcast. We're talking about everything you've been working on. When I think about cloud security content, like first thing that comes to my mind is Ashish. First thing that comes to my mind is cloud security podcast. And the beautiful thing about that is I found so many cloud security content creators or cloud security professionals in general from cloud security podcasts. So how does it feel to be that person? How does it feel to be the face of like cloud security in general, especially when it comes to like, technical stuff, professionals, content, all of that? How does that feel to be the go-to guy or the go-to channel?
Uh, I'll start with saying it's definitely I'm grateful and humbled by all the love that people show us. Like I think the one thing that happened very recently as well, which I probably go back to. So Shilpi, who's my co-producer, her and I were going to an event in RSA, and it's funny because we always assume that no one would know us in the room. So we always walk in, and I think we were going for dinner. This is like a big festival. I think like a big gathering. So we're like, oh, no one would know us. We'll just walk in, have dinner, and walk out, and just go back to sleep because we had a big day. And
Yeah.
we could not go from the entrance to the food table or the buffet table for a good half an hour. Like we just basically taking pictures. So everyone's like, "Oh my god, Cloud Security podcast! Oh my god!" And it's like it just kind of like spread like fire because people were just like, "Hey, the Cloud Security podcast is here!" And then suddenly there was a moment when someone wanted to give us a mic, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. So, so let's just not go into that much of this. I'm just going to get some food. I'll come back to you guys. But they just like that kind of stuff is I not something that we ever expected. So we're definitely grateful for the
Mm.
love people show and the love that we kind of see in general. Every time people see us, hey, Cloud Security podcast, like even from a distance from a car, like, oh my God. So like that is that side. And the other side is also the kind of guests we get. I'm super
Mm.
humbled by the kind of names we've had. And you kind of mentioned some people as well who've become part of your network as well. In a way, you kind of hear them and you follow them as well. They follow you.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that has made our lives a lot more amplified than would have been, I guess, in an ordinary way. If
Mm.
to put it, I met you through it. I met a lot of other people through it as well. So it's definitely getting to learn quite a bit. It's also making me challenge a lot of the norms as well, because a lot of people look at us for thought leadership, and if we don't
Mm.
see the trend, like if we have conversations, say, with the CISO of LinkedIn or the CISO of Robinhood or CISO of Netflix or any of those people, people are expecting, because we're having those conversations, what's the insight? Like you've spoken to all these different industries. Like the most recent one was from the HBO Max folks people. I think HBO Max, I think is the channel name. Oh,
Yeah.
Warner Brothers Fox, or Warner Brothers, basically. They
Hmm.
their head of cloud security. She was lovely. She came on and she spoke about what their challenges are. So that's been really interesting to kind of have that kind of challenge to be that thought leader as well, so others can go, oh, okay, this is what's coming, and be that voice. I'm sure we don't get that right all the time, but people definitely let us
Yeah.
know that, hey, this is not the right direction. So we
Yeah.
always kind of like pivot back, but it's definitely good, man. I think I'm super grateful for it, and
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to where else this can go.
Yeah, no, I'm just glad to hear that because like it's definitely been, so many like great things since, or even before and after, my interview
Yeah,
because that's sort of like the point at which I can use to like, gauge like where you've come from and where you're at right now. Because the interview we had was in 2021.
yeah.
I was like 19 at the time. I was like I was still like fresh in the industry, like everything was so new to me. Like that was the first time we actually met and we actually
Yep.
like spoke and and all of that. So like it's definitely been great seeing like how you've where you've come from there and like where you're going with it. And I'm super excited about that. And I wanted to ask, cloud security podcast, very, very original. I must say.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I definitely get that a lot.
I mean, like, how did you come up with that name?
uh,
How did you come up with it?
Dave, I would love to tell you it was a well thought out exercise because I was thinking about SEO and all of that, but it was sheer laziness that kind of landed me on that name, as a lot of popular things are. So this is in the beginning of 2020, and the pandemic was kind of starting, and because I've been running meetups for a long time, so I was running the DevSecOps Melbourne, as this is in Australia, before we moved over to the UK now. The DevSecOps Melbourne meetup, which had about 900 something people, we were definitely running that for some time, and we started talking about cloud security just like 6 7 months before the pandemic kind of happened. And
Yeah,
we kind of became like a default voice for it, and people were reaching out saying, hey, everything's shut down, we can't go to conferences, we can't go to meetups, is there some resource that you can recommend? And I started reaching out to friends like you and others saying, hey, Jiro, just jump on a call, let's just share some ideas and talk about what we are working on and see where we go. And by the way, I'm still super grateful for a lot of people who supported the idea, because when I was
yeah.
telling people about the idea, a lot of people said, that's a shitty idea, man, don't do that.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. I think there are people who like, I would not go on that show. This is
Mm,
this is back in, like, I think now it's very rare that we hear no from people to come on the podcast. But there was a time when I was literally scrambling for guests until the day before. So like there has been
wow.
a time like that as well, where people did not like, oh, just another guy with another podcast. Like, yes, that's so
Wow.
it's definitely has helped us to at least know people that they, oh, because when people search for it, or there's like, oh, I'm gonna looking for a cloud security podcast, and hey, look at that, there's actually
Yeah.
a podcast called Cloud Security Podcast. So
Yeah.
it kind of worked out in our favor later on. So as I said, it's definitely something that was more because of laziness rather than a well thought exercise. So it's definitely
Yeah.
original, as one say. I think funny enough, we started a second podcast called Cloud Security News for the same reason, but we're like, well, I guess can't think of like how else do you, like, I don't like, I think I'm so glad I don't have kids, because I don't know how will I name them. It's like child one, child two. It's like
No.
like, just to keep my life really simple. And like,
Man.
maybe that's why Elon Musk has his kid's name as, like, the number thing, because like, how else do you remember it?
Man, I mean, the originality is just amazing, man. Like, cloud security podcast, cloud security news, child one, child two. I mean, at this point, that's. I mean, I really like the fact that you were able to like push, beyond people's like opinions and ideas of like what the cloud security podcast should have been. It's like, I'm not going to watch this. Well, there's people out there who will watch it,
Yep.
and a lot of people are watching it right now. But it's definitely great to see that. But I wanna kind of go before a cloud security podcast. Like, let's talk about your journey. Like, what was your background in? Because I know you have a professional
Yep.
background. You've done a lot of things before going into cloud security podcast. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, sure. So I did I think so, from a professional qualification perspective, I've done a master's in cybersecurity. Actually, this was called information security back then. So now they changed the degree name. That's how old I am for people. It's like that. It's not even called information security anymore. It's called cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And once I did that, the first job that I had was in identity and access management. And the funny thing is, when I was doing identity access management, I thought that was the most boring thing in the world, because like, who wants to talk about identity all day? Like, how many kinds of identity can Ashish have in a company at any given point in time? Like a normal user and admin user. Worst case scenario, a third case scenario, he's an executive, so he gets a bit more. But how many
Hmm.
scenarios can you really have? And moving forward to 2022 onwards, cloud and identity have become like synonymous for, hey, identity is a new parameter for cloud. So all that knowledge from them has still been valuable. After I did the identity access management for some time, and I moved over to a consulting company. I started working in the cloud space. I started doing the whole cloud security engineer role, which was really interesting. At that point in time, we were one of the first banks in Australia to go into the AWS cloud. I think, fun fact, I don't know if it's still true, but when we were starting off back in that startup, um, I would probably say the largest consumers of AWS outside of US was Australia at that point in time. So in
Wow.
a way, lucky being in a country which was the largest consumer of AWS outside of US at that point in time. So very forward thinking from that perspective. So got to work with on a lot of interesting projects, and I got, because I had identity skills and cloud security skills, started working as a security architect. From a security architect perspective, did that for telecom companies, banks, did identity access management in a cloud context for an entire bank in Australia. After that, the consulting company that I was working for, they decided to expand into MSSPs. So did SOC, build a SOC team around it as well. Help them talk about what that would look like. What does compliance look like? And as I
Hmm.
was gathering all these skills, I kind of realized, wait, I've kind of done all sides of it, except for pen testing, which I was literally there in pen testing for one hot minute, and after that I left because I was like, this is not for me. It's like, there's no way I'm gonna spend hours trying to read manuals. This is totally
Math.
not my thing. I can talk about it for hours, but I definitely cannot read manuals for hours. So
Right.
apart from that one field, I definitely had worked in most of it, and that's kind of what made me feel, oh, maybe I can definitely go down the CISO route. And I got
Right.
my first role as a CISO in a company called Pager People, which is a HR tech company. They still exist. It's been there for a long time, and I kind of came into the organization when they were at AWS. Before I left, they were multi-cloud with Google Cloud, Azure, AWS. Built the security practice over there, expanded the organization into France as well as France and Ireland. So got a global experience, and I think as I was doing that, now I have been in that cloud security podcast kind of space full time now. We got a full time sponsor, so basically that allowed us to kind of go, oh well, we can just do this full time. I don't have to be the full practitioner. Although I say that with an asterisk on top, because I feel like I still have a bit more of professional life in me. But for the moment, I wanted to see how I go with the whole full time content creation space. So that's kind of like, I know I took a whole 10 minutes to kind of explain my journey, but there's a lot that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's an amazing journey, and I think I wanted to ask, in regards to that, because I know you mentioned that you had IAM experience, cloud security experience, but before then going into like full time content creation, how do you feel that all these experience that you had played a role in eventually getting into making content for cloud security in general?
Oh, that's awesome! Because I think funny side story on that as well. I actually thought before I started the podcast, I actually thought that no one wants to hear about cybersecurity online. I think there were definitely a few people on the internet who were talking about it, but they were talking more from a hacking perspective. Hey, bug bounty program, threat detection, all of that, and
Yeah.
it definitely was an audience there. But there was not a lot of audience members who were talking about the blue team side. A lot of people were talking about development, and a lot of people were talking about all the other things around it, but never security beyond your certification. Like, that was not a thing. I
Right.
think at that point in time, I would probably even say we were one of the first few people who were talking about the practical use cases for what cloud is and what cloud security can be like. So that definitely is an advantage. But the funny thing was the kind of content I was creating before that. Like, so I've been in the content game for the same time that I've been doing cybersecurity. So I started doing men's
Mhm.
fashion, travel, food blogging for a long time. When this is before pandemic, when it was very much a market for influencers. I was doing that for a long time, and when the whole world kind of shut down, I was kind of forced into creating content for cybersecurity because I had a lot of creative energy that I wanted to kind of take out somewhere. And
Yeah.
that's why one of the reasons why I thought, oh, podcast may be great, so I can just like talk into a mic and see what happens, and then transition into YouTube videos. And now if you look at it, you can still see the remnants of my men's fashion days in the kind of content that I put out on LinkedIn. Like there are a lot of
Yeah.
vlogs, a lot of reels. There's a that's my vibe. And
Yeah.
as much as the technical experience that I had as a cloud security engineer, as an IAM person, that helped me have a real conversation with practitioners where they were talking to a colleague rather than just an interview host who has no idea about cybersecurity. The other side of presenting that information with a bit of humor and a bit of like the men's fashion flair, for lack of a better word, that definitely
Yeah.
contributed quite a bit in making cloud security podcast what it is. Because it's almost like it's hilarious that the amount of time people see, every time anyone would see me in casuals, they're like, dude, where's your suit? Like,
Yeah.
and the funny thing is, the reason I started doing men's fashion was because I wanted to change um, the general image people have about technical people. That hey, technical people are just your standard t-shirt, jeans, jacket, hoodie. Like, but every time I would walk in with a suit on, everyone would be like, "Are you applying for a job?" Or like, I think that's, or are you trying to get into sales? Like, no, I just like wearing suits. That's pretty much it. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of that, and I would say a lot of all of that has made Cloud Security Podcast what it is today, with the popularity it has. A lot of that has definitely contributed. Obviously, without saying it goes that hey, the technical experience I had, it made the guest who came in understand that hey, this person understands where I'm coming from. And so a lot of
Right.
people kind of called out, oh, the questions you ask are like so to the point. I'm like, yeah, because I've done that before. Like,
Yeah.
I've been there, I've seen those scenarios, I know exactly what they're going through. So, and because I've done the CISO role as well, it definitely helps me uh, bring both the leadership conversation as well as a practitioner, like a engineer conversation as well, to hey, how am I going to implement this? Because I've always been a technical
Mhm.
person at heart and still continue to be. Like, I started a boot camp for free on our YouTube channel for the same reason, because I'm like, I want to get some tools
Yeah.
going. So yeah, hopefully that answers the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, no, it does, and way more. And to your point of fashion, like, you have a very unique sense of style and a very good eye for details. And even like, we can't forget the magnificent beard, man. That's
I
just like
appreciate that, man.
that beard is yeah, man. It's just always on point. Like every time, like it's like your trademark. Like every time you see a she always has a beard. And the
Well,
beard
because
is always on point.
the funny thing is, if you actually search for me, you would find me clean shaven in most of the images on the internet, because beard only happened through the pandemic.
Oh,
And
interesting.
if you actually, if anyone just search for Ashish Rajan, and you would definitely find a lot of images of me from my men's fashion days when I was clean shaven. The beard only happened through the pandemic, and as the podcast grew older, my beard grew longer as well. So, so,
Wow.
at a point, I was just like almost like it was almost up to my way below my chin, man. I think so. I kind of had to like some of my friends started saying, dude, it's going too far. You probably like your face is kind of disappearing in that beard. So that's when
Yeah.
I had to like the best excuse, and I think a lot of people maybe from an Asian background would relate to this, where a lot of parents are not happy with their kids having beard. It's almost a sign that the son is getting older, and the longer the beard, the more it's like, oh my god, can't believe you're doing this. So, like the first few times I was FaceTiming my mom, and she would just nod. She was like, "Oh, why don't you shave off your beard?" And like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's like it's a pandemic and things are locked down. I can't go to a barber." I think kind of worked out for the first month or so, but after a while, I started saying, "Oh, it's just too long now. I have to wait for a barber." And thankfully, the
Yeah.
pandemic kind of lasted for some time. So by the time we came out of the pandemic, my mom was used to the beard. So if I would have shaved it off, she's like, "Oh my god, what happened to your beard?" So
Yeah.
now she doesn't even talk about it. She's like now just like, "Oh, my son has a beard. That's it."
Right. Yeah. Do you think we'll ever see beardless Ashish ever again?
I would do that for a charity. I think I definitely feel if I do ever do a charity thing, I would definitely do that. I
Yeah.
think we definitely feel it. It's definitely a brand, and to what you called out, it's like oh everyone remembers it. And I don't know if this is true fact, but I was listening to someone. They said that most people remember faces that has some kind of facial feature like colored hair,
Yeah.
beard, or something which is different than a regular, hey, a standard haircut and a standard clean shaven face. So I
Yeah.
definitely feel it has a lot of appeal. So until I find a charity that I want to support and get behind, that day I'll definitely do a challenge to shave it off on the like to raise money. I'll definitely do that.
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe like diet, maybe like a, like
Oh
a
yeah, I've been told like do the multi-layer thing, the same
yeah.
Christmas thing, but I'm like, oh, that'll be. I would love to do that. Hopefully one day, man.
Yeah. Me, you can dye like, the cloud security podcast colors,
Oh,
just
the rainbow
represent the
colors.
brand. Yeah.
I could, yeah. I think it'll be it'll be definitely fun though. I can imagine the effort involved because how long did it take you to color your hair?
It was about 2-3 hours
Yeah. Okay. So
overall.
that this probably would be similar as well. Then I imagine. So that's 2 3 hours is not bad. I think I may even consider it,
Yeah.
man. That's a great idea. I'll pass it to the producer.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, you know what's crazy? Over 60% of you watching right now are not subscribed. So, do me a quick favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you also get notified whenever we drop any new video and you don't miss anything. So, yeah, back to the video. Back to the video. Thank you. Back to the video. But we've covered a lot of things. So I wanted to kind of come back to like cloud security podcast. You talked about how it sort of went from meetups to like actually like making the videos, then going to the podcast. In that phase, what was that aha moment for you where you were like, cloud security podcast is something that I want to take seriously, and it's more than just like a meetup or more than just like YouTube videos or just interviews.
I I would say so. At the moment, globally, there are I think 7 meetups that run under the Cloud Security Meetup banner. We have one in London, Amsterdam, New York, Boston, San Francisco, Austin, and Seattle. And
Mm,
when people started reaching out that they wanted to host a meetup in the city, that was like probably the first sign that hey, we want to be under this banner. And
mm,
the next time was when people wanted to join, like you create some content for our YouTube channel as well. Then when people
yeah,
wanted to get behind the community and create content for the Cloud Security podcast banner, I think that was because it's almost like a lot of people are trusting the brand that they would remain I guess would be respected in the industry if they create content for this. I think that's kind of where I see it, because why would
yeah,
someone create content, or why would someone run a meetup on a quarterly basis for an organization that it's like, oh, it's like it's a guy's face in there with some
yeah,
rainbow faces or rainbow beard or whatever. So it
yeah.
because this I'm sure there's so many more that they can support. So I think
Hmm.
definitely those were some of the incidents, but the biggest one which made us go full time into it, and I don't think I've shared the story publicly that often. I think this happened in January, not this year, last year, 2021,
Right.
2022, sorry, January 2022, where someone reached out, one of the followers from the podcast, and they basically were trying to reach out. And I jumped on a call because I think most people who reach out, I just jump on a call with them just to say hello.
Yeah.
And this person, he used to be like his family and him were a farmer in India, and like imagine of farming in India is not the same as farming in a Western society. It's like a very
Right.
different kind of farming. Like we're talking like
Yeah.
third world farming. And
Yeah.
he said that he has been listening to the podcast on Spotify while he was farming on the field. And yeah, he's it's fine. It makes me a bit teary as well as I said. But he was listening to the podcast for over a year. He started building his skills in cloud security, and he got a job. And he was moving out, taking out his family from the little village that they were in India, and moving to a city because he got a job in technology. And he just wanted to call
Wow.
and say thank you. And this is, by the way, I'm still doing my CISO job, and this is still part time as a weekend thing. And
Yeah.
that's definitely a defining moment when Shilpi, my co-producer, and I decided that hey, this is something full time. This is imagine this is just part time, and we are already
Yeah.
impacting people. If you had access to I'm getting theory of that as well. Uh,
No, you're good, man.
the um, yeah, so that was definitely the most impactful moment that made us feel that hey, this is something that is generational. It's not something which is just
Yeah.
gonna be that Shilpi and I kind of do for some time and becomes a thing. That's where we started the
Mhm.
Cloud Security Advocates program, so that other people can
Yeah.
come in and start doing the meetups, start doing training, however, whatever they want to do to share the cloud security love, so others in the
Yeah.
community can also learn from it. I think that's what made us feel that oh, this is something big here. And now every time we walk into a room, the amount of love we get, that's also a great sign. I think, and even from a numbers perspective as well, for people who listen to the podcast, like we did 500,000 downloads last year, and we're almost
Wow.
gonna go. I think we're good for a path to hit 1 million this year, and
Wow.
I'm just super grateful, man. I think those signs like those and these numbers like that, people are like, "Are you really?" I'm like, and you just show them screenshots and like, "Holy wow!"
Yeah.
Like this, holy cow! This is basically.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? But it's amazing. Like we still feel we're starting off. That's the funny thing. It's been
Mm, mm,
4 years of running it, and funny enough,
yeah.
I was going to shut down the podcast in the first year
Wow.
because I just did not think there was enough content to put out. Like, how much can you talk about cloud? And then you realize,
Yeah.
oh wait, there's a new feature. Oh wait, there's a reinvent. Oh wait, there is a new threat came out. And then I think the second year was when people like Orca Security, Wiz, and Datadog, and everyone started coming out with vulnerabilities in cloud. Like, oh wait, there's a whole that was not even a thing that you could actually find vulnerabilities in cloud. And then like
Yeah.
you anyway, just kind of continued, and now it became about we talk about cloud native security like Kubernetes security as well. It's just insane. And like moving forward, we're talking about AI security as well because that's becoming quite common in the cloud conversation because people are trying to build AI models on it. What does that mean for cloud? I'm like, it
Mm.
just doesn't end. I'm like, oh my god! I was hoping 1 year of it, the pandemic would be
Yeah.
over and the podcast would be over. And
Wow.
4 years in, it's a full business, which is hosting events for people now and doing the podcast.
Man, that is so amazing. Like that is so inspirational, man. Like it's beautiful like that. And that's one of the biggest impact of content.
Yeah,
Like you're reaching people that are so far away from you, but the impact you're having on them is so great without you even directly interacting with them.
yeah,
Just by someone like following your videos, watching your videos, learning from you,
yeah.
they're able to like completely transform their lives. It's so amazing. And I think that's a power of content that I which keeps me making content and I realize also keeps you making content, wanting to make cloud security podcast better, reach more people, right,
Yeah,
and actually like change lives, one way or another. So that's definitely amazing to
I
hear.
appreciate that,
And
man.
like
Thank you.
you definitely you've had several amazing guests on the podcast, right? All the way from my humble self, to the likes of like Scott Piper, Jonathan Rao, Nick Frechette, Rodrigo Montoro, several people right on there. I wanted to ask, what has been the most interesting or impactful interview that you've conducted on the podcast, and why was it interesting or impactful?
So you mean after yours?
Yeah, after mine or before mine,
No, yours definitely.
aside from mine.
Apart from yours, of course, I think there are actually few which have definitely changed the way I looked at the industry. Like we had Jeff Belknap, who's the CISO of LinkedIn, the current CISO of
Mm,
LinkedIn. We had Caleb Seema, the former CISO of Robinhood. Now, for me, when they said yes, it was
mm,
definitely like they definitely see value in coming on that. I think that was a
yeah,
validation for this is something here that people like them are also considering coming on the podcast. But when you meet them and they're super humble people, you're like, oh my god, these like so. For example, Caleb Seema has had multiple startups in the cybersecurity space exited. He in fact created the whole application security space as we kind of talk about. Like he's one of those
hmm,
OGs. And he was quite keen to work on it. I think we did another episode with him while we were at RSA, which is going to come out soon. But Jeff, again, super humble. When we were at RSA last year, we mentioned met him at the LinkedIn office, which is close by. Had a great conversation with him back then as well. Got to know him as now. I'm grateful to call these people friends now. The
mm,
fact that I would have never thought before, like those two were definitely quite a standout. There were other two which I think they were definitely standout. Were one with Daniel Miesler, he runs the Unsupervised Learning podcast,
yeah,
and another one with Kelsey Hightower, who talks about Kubernetes quite a bit. Those two made me realize the power of storytelling, and
mm,
those interviews made me maybe a bit more humble about the like the thing, the phrase in Spider-Man, with more power comes more responsibility.
yeah,
The bigger the voice you become in cybersecurity or anywhere, it's your responsible to be if it's your responsibility to be okay with explaining complex topics in the simplest way possible.
yeah,
And so you can, not just because you care about people at your level, but you want to open this door for people who are trying to come into the field as well. I think that's where I see it. And having that interview with Kelsey as well as Daniel made me realize, oh my God, these people have been in the space for a long time. And the way they explain it is like, well, anyone can understand it. Any 5-year-old would listen to it. Like that's one of the reasons why the whole chat GPT tell me like a 5-year-old. That's why that's popular,
Mm,
because
yeah.
everyone, like most people are smart. And I say most people, like I'm sure there's some people just like some people out there are the exception. Like I would let them be the exception, but most people get every complex topic if if you can't explain them correctly. And as a CISO, it's even more important because you're trying to talk about adversaries, threats, detection to people who have no idea
Yeah.
about what hackers do on a day-to-day basis, because they don't have to. Like they know that they do a certain business, like whatever the business may be, they're really good at that. So they're clearly smart people, they're at the high position.
Yeah.
So if I can't explain a complex cybersecurity topic to them in a simple form, why would they invest money in cybersecurity to grow that
Mm,
practice? It doesn't make sense.
mm,
So
yeah.
that power of storytelling from those two episodes. So yeah, those four I think would definitely stand out. After you, of course. I'm just gonna
Yeah. No, no, it's great, like, just meeting people or having conversations that, change your perspective on something. It's really great because like I've had like, various conversations with different people that have changed my perspective, my understanding of something. Even conversations with you as well, like,
Appreciate that.
about content, about, professional, like everything, like, and they just like give you a different insight into something, and that just like you just hold on to that thing, and it completely affects like how you do things moving forward from there. So it's definitely great that you've had that. But on a on a less serious side, what has been the funniest, or most challenging video you've ever worked on, either virtually or in person?
Oh, this is the moment you cut the feed, man.
Yeah.
This is like I've been like bringing up cloud security podcast so much, and suddenly I talk about embarrassing moments.
Yeah.
Like there actually have been quite a few. Funny enough, this is in like the beginning couple of years as well. The first one was I think where we jumped on a similar live stream, and for some reason I could not hear the person. And most people who have been on a Zoom call or any kind of an online call, you realize if you have AirPods or something on the other, it takes over. But your
Yeah.
AirPods are on the side; it's not even in your ear. I made the
Yeah.
poor guest restart her computer all the way, and then I saw the live stream feed going, "We can hear her, we can hear her," and I'm going, "Oh my god!" And like it was me the entire time. Then there was another one where I think I had someone from AWS come in. I literally hit go live and my computer froze, and there was
No.
no, like everything in my room, like the studio lights, everything is just going, oh my god. And then I remember running to get my wife's laptop, and the entire feed was basically I just had to jump on it separately. And that reminds me another one. While I was I've got so many of these, so I can just keep going. uh, there was while I was doing the live stream, I accident because I was trying to go forth between some of the questions that I had written and coming back on it. I hit the back thing, and there was a moment when it just became the person, and they're talking, and they're like, "Oh, I guess Ashish is somewhere here." I don't know. Like, I had no idea. And this is probably the last one, and I'll stop after that. I'll stop
Yeah.
embarrassing myself after that. I did not
We can
know.
talk more about it offline.
Yeah, I'll tell you more about this offline. There's so many more. There's one where we were doing a live stream on Twitch, and this was a Twitch live streamer, but I did not know that power can go off in Brazil. Like, I mean, I would have, because we were in the middle of live stream, his power went off, and I'm going, like, where is he gone? Because in my mind, Western world, there's 24/7 power, unless there's a storm coming, which you get a warning
Yeah.
for beforehand. There's no way this
Yeah.
power off. But he's like, oh, I just had to go switch on the generator, man. I'm like, wow, like that is the thing. So like,
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to make. Oh, don't worry, I'll just keep talking into the universe, and hopefully no one cares. and the 1,000 people that are online, they keep listening to me as well.
Yeah.
But it was just came online. It's like, oh man, like sorry, just the power went off. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, man, it's Brazil. Just like power goes off. Like, okay. I'm like, okay.
Man.
So I'll stop there before I keep embarrassing myself with the endless stories. But more on when I see you at reinforcement, or maybe any of your listeners see me at reinforce, I can share more stories then.
Yeah, no, those are hilarious. You should have like a Hall of Fame portion on your website where you're like podcast Hall of Fame of
uh
like most embarrassing moments, and people can go watch the clips
Yeah, and it's
on
funny
there.
because I'm in a way, that's also a humbling moment because I'm grateful for people. They still love those episodes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those were still, funny enough, one of some of the more popular episodes as well. Who would have
Wow.
thought?
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
People love
No,
seeing me
that's.
embarrassed, basically. That's pretty much it.
I mean, it's that's the full cycle of content creation, man. You go from like highs to lows to somewhere in the middle, and then you just it just keeps going wherever it goes.
That's right.
Uh, Yeah, but no, like those are very very hilarious. But let's shift gears a little bit into cloud security a bit.
Yep.
So you've obviously been in the cloud security space for a very long time. You've had conversations with various people. So from your experience, your conversations, all of those things, how has cloud security evolved over the years?
Mhm.
And what trends do you see emerging in the future? Because obviously, cloud security in like 2018 is not cloud security right now in
Yep.
2023. So many things have changed, across like the various cloud providers. And what have those changes been in your experience? And what have those trends been? And what do you see going into the future?
Great question. And maybe I can answer it from an audience perspective as well. I can talk from a what's changed from an executive perspective, a practitioner perspective, and the CSP perspective as well. So you get to kind of hear all
Yeah.
three. We're fortunate enough to kind of talk to all of them. So I'm grateful that I can share that perspective as well. From an
Hmm.
executive perspective, back in 2018 or 2019, when we started doing cloud security, a lot of conversations were more around why would I trust cloud? Just because
Mm.
Amazon is popular, isn't it? Or is it secure? Although, funny enough, I was on a call a few days ago where there was a big organization trying to go into cloud in 2023, and they were like, people were trying to convince them on why should you go into cloud.
Mm.
Like in 2023, we still have people who don't believe in the concept that, hey, this is actually going to be better for you moving forward. But that's understandable, because not like, I think there was a stat that SANS did. I think they were saying that or 17% or 21% of the enterprise of the world are on cloud. So we haven't even
Mm.
like imagine this: the entire world, at least as for me, runs on IT and technology, and only 21%, even if it's conservative 21%, only those 20%, 21% are on the cloud. Like we haven't even
Barely
touched, like
scratching the
70 plus
surface.
percent is not even there.
Wow.
So like there's a lot more to happen as it kind of, as it evolves. But which is why I still have same conversations that I had in 2018 today sometimes. Now,
Mm.
moving forward, for people who are already leading the charge with cloud, who went into cloud in 2018, 2019, they have also evolved as the cloud practices have evolved. So now the conversation at an executive level is like, okay, how do I secure this? How do I prevent a breach from happening? How do I, like, they trust the fact that, oh, I can go into cloud safely as long as I don't make a mistake or I don't misconfigure anything. But how do I show value of security to a broader organization in this new landscape of cloud, where now I'm not just dealing with my virtual machine or servers? Because
Mm.
2018, we're still talking only about the most advanced thing was EC2 instance.
Yeah.
Now, Kubernetes, containers, now AI ML, if you want to throw that in there as well, Chat GPT is being used in organizations. Like, so there's a lot more complexity to it, and people are more focused, at least the executives are more focused on how do we make all of this available in a way that we don't, I guess, expose ourselves to a potential risk. Now, that's the executive side. From a practitioner lens perspective, earlier in 2018, there were not a lot of services that could fulfill security as a need. Like there was no
Yeah.
AWS WAF, I think, from memory. There was no, like, nowadays people just load balancer this, load balancer that. There's like
Yeah.
firewall this, firewall that. So a lot of those things did not even exist. Like people would say they believed in the whole IP address being like the most important thing still, because they were trying to bring in the same concept from on-premise onto cloud. But the moment you say, "Oh, IP address is not important," like, but wait, how do I know who it is? And then we spoke about offline about the whole incident response and forensics side. How do you do
Yeah.
forensics on something that does not exist anymore? That's just basically going, wait, I'm leaving myself exposed. I'm not comfortable with this, and they move on. But
Right.
now, at least people like yourself and others are talking about threat detection, like being more proactive and going, oh, we can actually detect this. We can actually respond to this in an automatic fashion. Like, so there's a
Hmm.
lot more services that are available, more, which I won't say on par with what you have on premise. They are still evolving, because you can imagine most companies out there nowadays are multi-cloud. They all have presence in more than one cloud provider, sometimes even private cloud. Like, especially if you're looking in Europe, We were in Amsterdam for KubeCon EU a couple of weeks ago, and most people over there are working on private cloud because they don't
Yeah.
trust public cloud. They can't do GDPR or manage data flows appropriately in cloud. So for them, that was kind of like the thing for them. That's kind of like the practitioner lens has now changed for how do I have these modern standards apply in a cloud context. Now, the last one with the CSP themselves, kind of like I think I kind of answered those two in the beginning, but initially the compliance standards were limited as well. So a lot of
Yeah.
organizations that wanted to work with them, they either did not have the cloud service provider in their region, or they did not have the right kind of services available in their region.
Mm,
So for my thinking over here is that one of the reasons Oracle Cloud got popular, if you look at where their regions are, they're in Saudi Arabia, like the Middle East region, which was
yeah.
not captured by Azure or AWS or Google Cloud for a long time. And they
Yeah.
all had to go to Ireland. Like imagine like Saudi Arabia and Ireland, they had to go to Ireland to get their cloud provider services from Amazon. So they only recently have, I think, an Azure. I think Qatar got their Azure data center recently, but before that was Oracle Cloud. And Oracle, that's why, like, oh my God, there's a market here. They went and captured all
Yeah.
the places where there was no region for AWS or Azure. There was the automatic thing. So
Yeah.
cloud service providers have also evolved. And initially, I think the reason I use the Oracle example is because the Oracle CEO kind of called out back in the day that, oh, cloud is going to go away. It's just a trend. It's going to disappear. And now he ended up making a service called our Oracle Cloud as well. But hey, no hate on him because he kind of learned it from his lesson. I guess he made money.
Yeah.
He's still probably one of the richest people in the world because of that. And the another way the cloud service providers have changed is also now because of people like you, me, and others in the community, like are talking about the importance of cloud security and the responsibility that the cloud service providers have on, say, you can't just have a service without having encryption as default. Like
Mm,
you can tell the customer, hey, it's only a tick box, it's a free service, use it, but why not just enable it by default?
yeah.
So that
Yeah.
shared responsibility, as a lot of people are calling out, they're holding the cloud service providers as a bit more, hey, you need to have some onus on this as well. And you just can't rely on us when you know it's literally to what you said, it's a little checkbox and it's free as well.
Right.
So why
Yeah.
is it that you just can't enable it by default? So I love the fact that AWS and others have started showing this as a default. Another thing, and this is probably the final thing that I'm seeing, which is we are evolving to a point where we are moving to a dev first cloud where developers are being
Mm,
considered as more important, which was like if you go to the pre-cloud world before 2018, we were all trying to do developer first in an on-premise landscape, and now we're doing that in cloud. So we have kind of matured, come a full circle on that place as well, where the KubeCon EU conversation that we had, the RSA conversations we had, and most of the cloud service providers and vendors in the space, they're all talking about developer first security because people like you and I can detect the worst case scenario threat that is available, but we can't resolve that for them. It's still a developer or a
yeah.
platform engineer or a cloud engineer who has to solve this. So we have to work with them. And that's what people are realizing as, hey, they are more important than just us being the police officer trying to identify a crime scene and go, oh, let's barricade this area, call in the SWAT team and see what SWAT has to say. Or so it's definitely
Yeah.
evolved quite a bit from then. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. For me, like, hearing all of that, it's like I've only been in cloud security for so long, right? I only just got into it like late in
Yeah.
2021. So for me, it's just a lot of learning, right? Just a lot of like, what has this looked like in the past? What is it looking like right now? And what is it going to look like? A couple months from now, a couple years from now, and just learning all of those things. Figuring it out, learning from people who have more experience, like yourself, right? Your guests on the podcast, and seeing all of those things because, like, I'm in a space, where and I like that you really covered it from like the executive perspective as well as the practitioner perspective because as a practitioner myself, like I sort of have a responsibility somewhere in the middle where I am the one who is like hands on the tools,
Yeah.
being the detections, but I also have a responsibility to, you know, convince the executive of how these tools, what we're doing, are going to be beneficial for the overall cloud security posture of the organization.
Yep.
So yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of that. Like from personally, it's just like soaking up that knowledge and learning all of these things from more experienced professionals like yourself, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers as well would definitely appreciate all of that knowledge as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. And well, viewers and listeners, because it's a podcast, right?
Yeah, yeah.
No pressure. No pressure,
I
man.
mean, yeah. Viewers and listeners. I mean, whenever we eventually export the audio to make it a podcast, but you did hint a bit that you recently moved to the UK. How's that been?
It's been good, man. I think it's funny enough. I think I keep telling this to people that like my dog has had more experience of UK than I have so far, because the first week in the UK was in an Airbnb, second week was in a rental, third week was in Amsterdam with Q1EU, fourth week was in San Francisco with RSA. This is literally the
Wow.
fifth week of us being in the UK, and we have the King's coronation coming up soon as well. So I'm excited about that. But in between all of that, there was a London marathon that happened, and the lovely lady who was taking care of our dog at the moment, I think she went to the marathon as well. So our dog got to experience the London marathon. I have to wait a whole year before I can even see one. But
Wow.
he definitely is experiencing a lot more London. He's definitely going out to a lot more greener patches, and I'm just enjoying just setting up the bed, making IKEA furniture. So basically, like I think this is like the half-hour setup that I have for studio. I've got the Elgato lights now, so I'm gonna put them on over a couple of days. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's been good. I think definitely from a food perspective, it's been really good, which was
Okay.
not something that I thought I would have expected from UK, coming from Melbourne, which I'm so proud to say that Melbourne, Australia, probably had one of the best food in the world. But now I'm like,
Wow.
oh, I don't know. I'm on the fence now. If London can actually be on par with it.
Do you think like London or Melbourne compares to the United States in food wise?
Well, it depends on where you're talking about in Melbourne, I guess, or in the United States, I guess. I think so.
Right.
I would say like certain food category is definitely better in the US. Like for example, Mexican food is definitely the best food, and like there's no way around it. Thankfully, you guys have so many, I guess, Spanish folks and Mexicans, and like you guys have taken over that domain that I don't think anyone else in the
Yeah.
world can. It's funny, the best Mexican places in Melbourne are run by Mexicans. So that to the point that, well,
Figures.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it kind of goes to, but I think one thing that I feel US can up their game on is on Japanese food. I think we definitely were spoiled for it, because being so close to Japan in Melbourne,
Yeah.
we get a lot more, I guess, fresher ingredients, or maybe more authentic ingredients, I guess. So
Yeah.
I would definitely say US is good, but I think one of our guests, he came on the podcast, he actually said San Francisco has the best food in the world, hands down. And I'm going, okay. And like, I'm still waiting for a recommendation
Well,
for
yeah.
like what would be the best food in the world. But here we
Yeah.
are. I think, but I must say during RSA, we definitely had some good food. Like I think I had some really good fried chicken. I'm a bit of a big sucker for fried chicken. It was really good. Went had
Okay.
the Jamaican jerk chickens. There was another New Orleans style fried chicken as well. As you can imagine, I had a few
Ah.
varieties of hot fried chicken while I was there.
Yeah.
And each time we were having it with hot sauce, but with the Jamaican jerk chicken, we had plantains. And with the New Orleans style fried chicken, we had the beignets. And like that kind of combination does not exist outside America. So like
Yeah.
America has
Yeah.
definitely got that nailed down.
Yeah. I definitely had everything. I was actually recently, excuse me. I was actually recently in New Orleans, like a couple months ago for my graduation, and
Oh,
like I had everything, everything, but like it was
what
amazing.
was
The
the
food there,
highlight food? Like, I think what was the one food that you're like, oh my god, I can go going back for it?
man. What was it? It was the last meal we had before we left there. There was this like pork. I don't know what they put in that pork,
Like
but it was like something pork, and I don't remember what it
not a
was.
roast pork or
Like my
something.
friend, you said what?
Not a roast pork, or like not a fried pork belly or something.
No, it wasn't. My friend and I are still till this day trying to figure out what we ate that day
Oh,
because it was so good and we just don't remember it. We wanted to go back for more, but it was the night before we were leaving and we
oh,
are driving, so we are like, let's just stay in.
oh,
But it was so good. It was so
wow.
good. It was so
You should
good.
definitely
Yeah.
share the name of the place on the give them a shout out later on as well. That good of food,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Yeah, I'll look for it, and yeah, definitely amazing experience. I wouldn't go to New Orleans like a second time, but like for the food, I would. I
Okay,
would.
right. Okay, so not much to do,
Yeah.
but but food scene is good.
Yeah, food scene is good. Food scene, party scene is good too. Like we
All
went
right.
to like a what's it called, Bourbon Street and everything.
Yeah.
Besides that, just not really
Right.
much
Okay.
out
Fair
there.
enough. All right. Good to know. All right.
Yeah,
I'll take that off one day when AWS Reinforce happens over there.
Hey man, it would be great to see if that
Yeah.
happens. That would be really cool.
Yep.
But we've talked about a lot, of a wide variety of things, and I think there's a lot of really great things we've discussed. But I wanted to kind of round up with like the future of cloud security podcast. Like I said, I might not have been there in the beginning, but somewhere early in the beginning, I kind of like started following, and I'm super excited for the future. It's definitely like one of the pioneers of cloud security content out there, and I think there's so much more in store for it. So, where do you see cloud security podcast going in the future, and what can listeners and viewers look forward to in the coming months or years?
So a few things. I mean, obviously, you saw the cloud security villains that we had at
Yes,
reInvent. So
I was going to ask
I
about
would like
that.
make sure, like, for people who would see it, they would just see that over there. Yeah.
Fire.
So the intent is to kind of add a few more villains in, hopefully before reInvent. No pressure for my producer when she listens to this. That we have to come up with five more villains, but I think that's making more accessible, making cloud security more accessible for people who are not from a cybersecurity background. So
Mm,
cybersecurity, the cloud security villains were definitely the first attempt. So a lot more of that. The other thing that we have started doing is we have started running free cloud boot camps with other boot camps that are running. Like, for example, Andrew Brown was running a boot camp until last week, which was a cloud boot camp.
yeah,
And I was finishing, I guess I was working with him to do the cloud security pieces. The reason for this is, and a lot of people may or may not relate to this, but when you're taught say any kind of coding in university, you normally just would go, hey, hey people, let's do a simple web page with hello world, and you kind of write,
yeah,
oh, hello world, oh my god, amazing, all right, let's try and put a and take an input from the user and
yeah,
put that as a hello world. Now, or instead of hello world, it's a hello Ashish. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm like, oh, level up, I'm leveling up on my
yeah,
coding. But what we never talk about is, hey, how do we do input sanitization for that? Right, if
yeah.
someone somewhere kind of puts that in there as well, that would be amazing. So my hope is the more boot camps that I see for cloud, I'm trying to collaborate with them to include a cloud security boot camp for free, because then for people, they get to learn about, hey, this is how I would apply cloud security concepts onto this as well. So if I wanted to transition over, I know what I'm looking at. Like, these are
Right.
the use cases that I can apply for. And so a lot more boot camps coming in. Hopefully we can do an in-person boot camp one of these days. We're doing a lot more training moving forward. I think we started this thing called the "This is my cloud security architecture" series, which is, the idea is a practitioner would come in and talk about, hey, what does day zero look like in AWS? Or day zero, I walk
Mm,
in, I have never done Azure, I've never done AWS. Where am I starting? So we did a series
yeah.
with Azure with Sai, who was grateful enough to share his time. We're gonna do one with AWS and Google Cloud and Oracle Cloud as well, because people have been asking for it. I'm like, great guys, I don't know who cares about Oracle Cloud, but we're gonna do that. But and I do joke about it, but I think it's come up in so many conversations, and so has Alibaba Cloud. Like, I think I used to joke about the fact for the first couple of years that there is no way these companies would exist after a while. They would, but they have figured out a niche. Like, Alibaba is really
Yeah.
popular in Asia, and they are dominating that market. And
Yeah.
Oracle Cloud was smart enough to go into places where neither Azure or AWS existed, establish
Mm,
themselves there, and these are big enterprises, big banks running on Oracle Cloud, so they're not going anywhere as well. So the we kind of cover more of that content as well, because people have started talking about Oracle Cloud and Alibaba. It's actually coming up in conversation that, oh, I'm using IBM Cloud. Like, okay, like that's still a thing, I guess.
yeah.
But so, like, there would be a lot more of that as well, and a lot more around the use of generative AI for learning cloud security. I think that definitely is something
Mm,
that I feel there is something there. I just haven't nailed down what that would be like at the moment, but I think there's definitely something there. I just need to get to, like, what that niche would look like, whether it's basically using generative AI to deploy code, which
yeah.
to me, like, well, if I'm deploying code, I probably want to be sure that what I'm deploying is going to work in the first place.
Yes.
So how do
Yeah.
I verify that's the right thing to do? So I haven't nailed that part yet, but from a learning perspective, it's been great to teach someone and go, hey, chat GPT, tell me what's AWS in like a 5-year old. That's a great one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of like most of the future at this point in time. But more meetups, more conferences, more in-person hangouts if I can help it. That'll be pretty awesome as well, man.
No, that is super exciting. Definitely looking forward to it. I saw the Cloud Security Villains, last year, and I was like, "This is so fire." I saw the trailer, and I was like, "This is so fire!" Like all the bro, it was so fire, and I got some stickers too,
Yeah, I
so
appreciate
that
that. Yeah,
was
no.
good.
Uh,
Yeah,
Actually, fun fact about that: the person who designed the villains, he used to be a comic book, I guess, drawing person for DC Comics, and
wow,
so we were so lucky to have him. And fortunately for us, he's based out of the UK as well. So I think
wow,
it'll be a lot more easier to kind of make more villains. I think. But he's done an amazing job. I think we just had the concept. I think I got the idea from Darknet Diary. So I just want to give a shout out to Jack Resider. I think because
yeah,
he was saying when I met him at Black Hat, Jack was talking about this thing that he would just like squill something on the paper and just give it to a designer, but they'll just like make this beautiful thing out of it. Because he's like, he said, I can't draw, but I
yeah,
have ideas.
yeah,
And he would just give the ideas and people would just make these things. And so that's what we did. And we're just super proud of where cloud security villains is at this point in time. But I can't wait to grow that into a lot, like a whole, I wouldn't say a DC comics universe, but, or even a Marvel
man,
comics universe, but I'll be pretty cool if you can get that point. Because
bro,
my hope
like
is
a
people can dress up like that when they come to a conference, like almost do like a
man,
what Comic Con, like almost like a Comic Con,
yeah,
but
like cosplay,
yeah, that's pretty cosplay. That's pretty much it. Yeah, like
yeah,
do that
yeah,
kind of style where people just say, even if it's me, Shilpi, and a few other people who just dress up like that and walk around, I would love it because I think it would definitely change, especially at non-cloud security events like reInvent,
yeah,
RSA, because people are like,
yeah,
who are you guys? Like,
yeah,
so that would definitely get people going about cloud security. Like, oh, we got a cloud security villain. Have you heard about this kind of thing? So that's kind
man,
of the future,
that
man.
would be that would be so fire. Because I was like, when are we gonna get comics, like cartoons, like get a
That's definitely
whole
coming,
cloud
man.
security universe? Like that would be so amazing. I would definitely dress up as like a maybe not a
Oh,
villain, maybe.
I will put you on that. I'll put you up for it. I'll take you up for it, man. I think you,
Okay,
me,
okay.
Shilpi, and a few other people. You just pick the character, and we'll make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. Just let me know. Send me my boots. Send me my keys, everything, like my cloud, everything. I'll put it on.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I
Yeah,
would definitely do that as well. I think we can. I'm actually funny enough because we're so close to Venice. Because one of the villains is like a subdomain takeover. I don't know where he is on this, but wherever he is, there's like a person who is called subdomain, but
yeah,
he's doing subdomain takeover. That if you know what I mean, because he's sort of doing a
yeah,
frame with a mask from Venice. I'm
yeah.
like, there's a lot.
I'll put an animation of it here somewhere in the video.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, that'll be pretty cool. So I think it would be it'll be pretty awesome. I think I'm definitely keen to make it the like so. Someone called us the millennials of cybersecurity media
Mm.
because we are all about like how I was joking about the Washington Post being like a big television thing and maybe with like a little SLR like a portable tripod.
Yeah,
I think I think that's basically kind of where I see like people like you, me, Darwin, and all the others. We're like the next generation.
yeah,
We're defining what content would look like in cloud security and cybersecurity moving
yeah,
forward. So people like us are they're redefining that,
yeah,
and the sky's the limit. We get to walk in with a blank piece of paper and like, how would I share this?
yeah,
That's like the most powerful thing anyone could have thought of. So
yeah.
we're changing the world, man. So I'm super
Man,
excited for it.
I'm definitely excited for it, man. But it's been a pleasure talking with you, Ashish. Always a pleasure.
Thank you,
Definitely
man.
look forward to like more content, more vlogs, whatever it is, and even getting to see you soon in any conference. Looking forward. But thank you for hanging out, and I guess like till next time.
Thank you. Appreciate that, man. And thank you for having me on the podcast. It is podcast, YouTube, however it turns out to be. I would definitely be fully supportive of it. No pressure again. But no, thanks so much for having me, man. It's an honor and it's always a pleasure talking to you and hanging out with you in person as well, man. Especially like flexing with you as well when I see you.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it'll be definitely awesome to kind of see you and see the gains you've been having, man.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you once again, and thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Hey, what is up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to click here for future and previous episodes of the podcast. And also, don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.